So, I'm going to share a story, outreach story with you. I want to ask you how many of you use DataDog? Probably nobody wants to raise their hands because because now Dennis set on the ground for me. Yeah? I already said that it's quite expensive, and yeah, we know that. We actually try to get either 100% of the costs. That's our target. We landed on 20. Basically decided to cut some of the costs and trims here and there, and yeah, I hope everybody can get something out of it. It's pretty much, I'll be pretty much sharing a lot of what we learned during this process of finding what's costful and how we can save it. So first of all, my name is Erik Witkowski, working as a staff engineer in Outreach. For those who don't know Outreach, we are a sales execution platform. Basically, we help enabling sales teams and help them to sell more and better. And a lot of people don't know, but I'm actually from Brazil, despite of the Slavic name. Most people guess I'm from around here. Actually, my family used to be, right? But around 6 generations ago, folks moved to Brazil. And now here I am back in Europe, being 5 years in Prague, and a little over 2 years in Outreach, being part of tooling teams, right? Specifically quality frameworks team. And another story about me is that I actually started as a technical support in my intern days. And then I switched to be a developer. That company helped me switch. But it was actually a bit hardcore. They didn't, was not only pushing, but they actually did the big reorg, and I ended up falling in software engineering at that time. And yeah, so not big planning. And somehow I ended up now in dev tooling. Before I was that .NET guy, backend. So yeah, it's a lot of stories I could tell, but for today, what I want to tell is how we approach it, actually, from the, say, planning side and doing the changes in DataDog to save some of what we were spending there. So basically, how I approach it, we need to understand what are the costs first. What do you pay for? Because sometimes with these SaaS services, you need to understand what makes the difference to change or not. Otherwise, you won't be saving anything if you don't change the right thing. So number two, you understand what's pricey, what's not. You know where to cut, where it's safe to cut. I mean, where you don't need the logs anymore, or where you don't need the metrics anymore. I'm going to show a little tricks how you can find it. And number three, to keep the costs under control. I like to think this could be applied to any SaaS service that you have, the same strategy. So I'm going to tell how we applied it to our DataDog initiative. I first showed that we got around 20%. That's basically an estimate for me from the last 30 days. So basically it was an effort to find what quick wins, right? Things we could change quickly and delete it, trim it, and get to a lower bill at the end of the month. I'm enumerating here some DataDog costs that I think are tend to be the most expensive. In our case, it was infra hosts, and you're going to find most of these things on the DataDog docs, but some of the things are not that explicit there, so we're going to end up reading the forums and etc. So summarizing here what we found. So the infra hosts, you pay for number of hosts, but what exactly is that? It's actually they're measuring every hour how many active hosts you have been monitoring. And what you pay is proportional to the peak of hosts you have during the month. So you have a bigger peak, you're going to pay more. You have a lower peak, you're going to pay less for this particular cost. You're going to have also index logs. Is that what you pay for having logs ready to search? And you're going to pay this one per event. And you pay proportionally to the number of logs, your retention period, how long you have them available to search, and the sampling level, of course, because that's going to tell how much you are actually retaining. And there's also the ingest of logs means what the processing of the logs. You send the logs to DataDog, you're going to pay for it. And it's proportional to actually the number of bytes. So this is slightly different. And custom metrics is what you pay for having the metrics available to you, and you pay for the unique tag combination. And I'm going to go more in details about custom metrics. Actually, I got quite a few slides on custom metrics because I think they're the one that is like trickier to understand. So infrahosts, what did we do? We actually, this is one is tricky to make any cut because essentially you need a host, so you need to pay for it. But there was one fortunate change in the autoscaler of our clusters, which reduced the number of hosts. So we end up saving here as well, even though it wasn't exactly planned as part of the intention. There was a change in the autoscaler. It brought the number of hosts down, the active hosts, by 20% or something. And as a consequence, we end up saving AWS and also end up saving in the logging, of course, in the monitoring of these hosts. Index logs are the logs that you have ready to search, extra structured logs. You pay for having them ready to search in the DataDog interface. And how can you avoid the cost? You can just not send the log, but you need to cut and know what you can safely delete. Right, so you're probably going to end up having discussions with the engineering team, supporting and finding what's not used. You can also do sampling in logs. But you still pay for the ingest of the bytes, but you don't get the cost of a retention of the logs. So you don't pay for this if you can sample. And you can also hydrate them if you need them. So if you end up needing the logs anyway, you can use hydration to have them at the interface. And that's one. There's one problem with sampling is that you lose a little bit of traceability because you're gonna randomly sample them, but if you can sample according to some filter you put in the interface like session ID or you can maybe inject from the application some filter true, then you can have some portion of your logs complete, so you have the traceability for those. That's one idea to reduce the cost but keep at least a portion of the data perfect and traceable, even though you can use sample. I'm going to open up for questions later. I'm going to cover the four types of logs, or types of costs. Ingested logs is what you pay for the bytes you send to DataDog. That doesn't change. Only thing you can do is not send it. Or you can reduce the payload by sending less bytes. And we end up saving by looking at the attributes and finding, for example, things that are redundant in your logs. So you send information like twice in two different attributes. Sometimes you may send it parsed, and then you send it as a unparsed string. So you're gonna pay it twice, right? In this case. And you can also truncate the logs. For example, you have very long error string, which you can end up with megabytes of log when you have some sort of incident. So it's a good idea to truncate your logs so that it doesn't eat up your space. And custom metrics. This one is what you pay for tag combinations in Datadog. That means you don't pay for volume. You can send, if you keep sending more and more metrics, you don't pay for the volume. So that's a misconception. Here you pay for the number of combinations you generate out of the tags that you are ingesting. And you can find these tags with some endpoints that Datadog offers, luckily. In this case, for example, you can even find unused metrics through list tag configurations that is offered by the API clients. That's how we managed to find a lot of metrics. And to my surprise, but not everybody's surprise, some people were expecting, but we had a long tail of unused metrics. It was a lot of used metrics, more expensive, but a long tail of many unused metrics that could be removed. You can find also unused tag values through some API. You can use the active configurations to find what are the tag values that are never used. So if it's not used, you can remove it depending on how you're ingesting your tags. You're going to have different ways to remove it. But essentially, independently how you're ingesting, if you're going through open metrics, Prometheus, ingesting or ingesting from logs into Datadog, you're going to use the same endpoint. You can also use the metrics plotter to find most expensive tags. I'm going to show some example how you can do it. One recommendation, choose counter metrics for count operations, because count metrics are cheaper than the metrics that calculate average and histograms. So it's a sort of a rule of thumb. And you can also avoid, this is a recommendation by Datadog as well, don't use unbounded tags such as timestamps, user IDs, or request IDs. If you use them as part of the tags, you're going to blow up the amount of combinations. You're going to end up much more expensive. Summarize the types of metrics. They are metrics with one value. This is called range or gauge. And there's the type of metric. There are 5 values exactly: average, mean, sum, max, and count. And on top of this, you can also have 5 more. The P's to P50 to P99. And you end up with 10. So the count is 10 times cheaper than the most expensive. This is just what I wanted to highlight. Basically, it's a unitar price. So how to get to the cost of a metric? You need to count the combinations that you have. So if you have a metric, and then you have a first tag environment, have a second tag result, you end up combining these things together. And what's going to be calculated every hour is Datadog is going to go through the mix of configurations and is going to get what's the number of tags that you have, combining it together. So this is the metrics explorer view. One thing you can do here, I did it a few times to find the most expensive tags. This is usually the graph where you are going to plot the metric values. We're going to ignore this for now. It doesn't matter the values. We're going to add all the tags. And here at the bottom, you're going to see actually the number of unique combinations are going to be displayed here. So that's a way you can view the number of tags you have for any time you put on the filter. And you can also delete one of these tags and see the change. So you can make some experiments on confirming if a tag is really expensive or not. Because if you go to the other interface that shows you the number of values for a tag, that doesn't necessarily map to the price. Sometimes the tags with fewer values, like 2 or 3 values, are the most expensive because they generate more combinations, like environment, typically, server, and users, for example. About the overusing distribution is when you tend to use distribution for a lot of things. Sometimes you already have a distribution metric that has all the 10 values, and you say, let's use it for count as well. Why not? You don't pay for more for using a metric that you already have. But I think in the long run, it makes you add more tags to this metric that you don't need for the distribution calculation. Ends up more expensive. So say if you perform your histogram calculations on top of this portion here, and you never do on this side here the tags, you filter out, that means you're paying 10 times more on this side because you don't actually need it to be calculated for all the 10 values. So what you can do is extract this out to a different metric, name it count, and then you can have it for 1/10 of the price. To summarize, what doesn't change the price of the metrics? Tags with a single value. If there's one value to the tag, it doesn't add the price. You cannot generate more than one combination. Tags that are correlated with the other tags. So if you already have city and you want to add the country, it's not going to increase the cost because the two values are correlated. You don't generate more combinations, right? Prague is always in the Czech Republic. So. And also changing the volume of logs. In theory, it doesn't change. As I mentioned before, sending more or less logs doesn't change. Because you don't pay for amount of logs on the metric or amount of metrics you're sending. But it can impact. And you can see this on the metric viewer. If you list the combinations and you put a count of combinations, you're going to see that there will be probably a long tail of combinations. Combinations are more frequently appearing and combinations that are less frequently appearing. And if you send less samples, you're going to obviously, or you're going to certainly remove some of the less frequent combinations. You're going to end up paying less as well. And to finalize, I want to share some ideas how to keep the costs under control. You can set up alerts on cost estimation on the cost. So you can use the own observability tool, right, to alert you about the costs of itself. It's clever, right? You can, in case of DataDog, you can create, you can use this estimated user metrics. You can leverage those to create an alert and target the alert to yourself. That's going to go over some threshold or or some anomaly detector. Also, cost attribution. So if you have more than one thing using DataDog in your company, you probably need that because you want to target these alerts to the people that are really managing this or owning this cost. So what you can do, you can add the team tag to your resources. Of course, you're going to have, if you don't have it, you don't start with this, you're going to have to have some effort to find what belongs to each team. So it's always better to start with it from the beginning. Number 3, so you can use some tag reducer to remove unused tags. In our case, we have some, for example, some metrics we pump to from Open Metrics. It ended up with a lot of Kubernetes tags that we usually don't use. So one way to remove it, we create some Chrome job, right? That goes there and removes the tags that are in use based on the API that tells us what are the used tags or not. And custom dashboards, finally. You can use the dashboard to plot this estimate user tags, and you can watch something like a daily price and a tendency. You have some. There is a page from DataDog on usage, But we found that creating a custom dashboard enables you to view some things that are not shown in that page. So I encourage you to explore it. Yeah, and that was all. Do you have any questions?